Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Sherman Reed. As you can clearly tell, there is a change of scenery back here, and that's because I recently injured my foot a little bit, and because of that I'm supposed to rest my feet. So for the long videos such as my book haul videos, aka what I'm filming today, I'm going to be filming on my bed, and this will also be a two-part video because last month was a little bit crazy with all the books that I received. I ordered 2 large shipments from book outlets, and I got a bunch of books from publishers, authors, giveaways, etc. It just went absolutely crazy. So I'm gonna be filming this video in 2 parts. So anyways, let's just get started. So I'll be starting off with my book outlet books first. This is my first shipment. I believe I mentioned this in my book haul video the previous month, where I had purchased it technically during that month, but it didn't arrive until sometime in September. So I decided to include it in this pile, which kind of was a mistake, to be honest, because now I'm like overwhelmed with all the books I got. But I'm going through the first shipment first, and there's about 11 books in my first order from book outlet. The first one is Reign the Earth by A.C. Coggin. I am mostly intrigued by this book because there's magic involved. It's about this girl called Shalia, and apparently there is this elemente in this world where they have control over the different elements such as air, water, fire, and earth. And she agrees to this arranged marriage with this king of the Bone Lands, and I guess in that land they really hate anything with magic, including the elemente. And then the day before, or shortly before she is crowned, she finds out that she has the ability to control earth. So now she is basically married to this king who hates people with magic, and she is one of them. So I'm very curious to see how this book comes out, or how this book proceeds, and yeah, we'll see how this goes. Then the second book that I got from book outlet is Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett. I am such in the mood for contemporary reads. I feel like even though now it's spooky reads and there's a lot of thrillers and mysteries on my TBRs these days, but I think I might do a contemporary reads like week where I would do a reading vlog, just a personal one for myself, where I'll pick a few books that I want to bust out that week. And I think this might be on it, to be honest. We'll see. This book is about a girl called Bailey, and she has this online crush with this witty film geek called Alex. And at first she's been talking to him for ages at this point, and they live on opposite ends of the coast of the country. So I think he lives on the west coast in California and she lives somewhere on the east coast. And at some point, for whatever reason, she ends up moving to the same town that he lives in. Of course, of all the little towns that you can live in or you choose to live in, of course she ends up with the same town as this guy, right? So she doesn't tell him that she's moved there, and she starts this job at this museum, and she ends up meeting this guy, the security guard, who's apparently very hot, called Porter. And of course this Porter guy ends up being the same Alex that she's been talking to this entire time. But apparently he's not just really Alex, he's Alex Approximately, hence the title of this book. But anyways, I'm very excited for this book. I also love the cover. It looks so pretty, and yeah, we'll see. The next book that I got is The Chaos of Standing Still by Jessica Brody. I actually don't know too much about this book, but I have read her previous novels before and I've enjoyed it in the past, so I have high hopes for this one. But this one is basically supposed to be about a story of letting go and starting over, so I'm very intrigued by this one. So the next book that I purchased is a mix between purely for the cover, because the cover is absolutely gorgeous, and 2, also because there's lots of controversy in terms of this book, in terms of if people like it or not. I think everyone just got sucked in because the cover is absolutely gorgeous, because everyone that I've heard so far, at least, absolutely hated this book or really don't like it. But I decided to get it because I think it was only like $3 or $4 on book outlet, and I was like, sure, why not? And this book is called La Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. So honestly, I don't know too much about this book because, like I said, the first thing that struck out to me is the cover. And I know that apparently a lot of people have been picking this as a good fall read, so I'm assuming it has to do with kind of creepy and kind of, I don't know, eerie, I guess. And I do know that there's dark fairy tales involved, so I'm pretty excited for this one. Now the next book that I got is one that I got because one, I've heard good things about it. It's a very cute book, I heard, and second, because the girl in it, it's like an own voices novel, because for me at least, because she's Taiwanese American and I'm as well. So I decided to get it, and yeah. This book is called American Panda by Gloria Chow. It's about this girl called Mei Lu, who is 17 years old, and she's technically supposed to be in high school, but because her parents are kind of have this ambitious, like, you know, life plan for her, they made her skip 4th grade, so she's actually in college now, and they have this plan to basically have her marry a pre-approved Taiwanese Ivy Leaguer and then produce a litter of babies. Oh, and she's supposed to become a doctor. So this book just really focuses about how, like, who she wants to be in the future rather than who her parents want her to be. And I don't know, like, I'm really intrigued by it, and I like the fact that it's about a Taiwanese American girl, which I don't think there's too many of those. The only one I can think of is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan, and that's only because I think she's like half Taiwanese instead of like fully Taiwanese, but she's the closest one, or the one that I can think of on top of my head that's Taiwanese American. So very excited for this one. Then the next book that I got is one that I got because I love sci-fi, and I think the premise for this series sounds very, very intriguing, and it's called This Mortal Coil by Emily Suvada, and her second book just came out recently, I believe, and I know if this book is great, I will definitely go pick up the second book, and I believe there's also a third book as well. I might be wrong. This book is about a girl called Katrina Agata, and she is a hacker, and she's not just a normal hacker, because in her world people are implanted with technology that can actually rewrite or recode your DNA. So basically that means that they can change their body so however they like, which is pretty freaking amazing. I am very intrigued by that. So not only is she a good hacker or like a regular hacker, she's also a gene hacking genius. So I am very intrigued by this. I'm guessing this means that she's really good with gene alterations and whatnot. And at this point in time, there has been this plague that has essentially decimated the human population, and her father actually is a genius geneticist who is basically, or essentially, humankind's last hope in finding a vaccine to cure and eradicate this plague. Of course, because he is this genius guy and everyone is relying on him, he gets captured by this shadowy organization called Cartaxis, and for the next 2 years Katarina has not heard from him, and then all of a sudden she finds out that he has passed away, but he managed to create this vaccine. So now she and this guy Coil, who happens to be a Cartaxis soldier, basically is trying to like figure out, like, find it and release it to save the human race. So I'm very intrigued by this. I'm assuming this Cartaxis soldier Coil might be a good guy because he's in the same, he belongs to the same organization that captured her father. So I am very, very intrigued, as I said already, by this premise of this book, and I've heard good things about it, so we'll see. But the next book that I got is The Last Sora by Kristen Ciccarelli. I'm hoping I pronounced that name right. And honestly, the main reason why I got this book is because there are dragons involved. I don't have that many books with dragons. Every time there's a book with dragons that a lot of people are loving or it's hyped up or whatever reason, I am like, yes, I need to get it. I don't think there's enough dragons in books these days, except for like epic high fantasy ones, but this one has dragons. So that's literally the main reason why I picked this up, and I feel like that's all you really need to know. So moving on. The next book that I got is actually one that I technically already own because I won this audiobook version of it, but it's an actual physical copy of an audiobook, and I honestly don't even have a means to listen to it because my computer laptop doesn't even have a CD input thingy or whatever it's called. So because of that, I don't even have a way to listen to it. So I end up getting this book in physical copy instead, because at least that way I can actually pick it up at some point. And that book is called Horrified by Stephanie Garber. I know her second book in the series, Legendary, came out recently, which is also another incentive for me to pick up this one because I want to read it and see if I like it, and therefore I can pick up the second book I don't even know if it's a duology or a series or whatever, but I wanted to pick up the rest of the series if I like this book, so I'm very excited for it. So honestly, I don't really know too much about this book except for the fact that it's about a carnival as stated in the cover, and it's a once a year performance where the audience actually gets to participate. And this year her sister, so this bad girl called Scarlett and her sister Tella, and this year her sister Tella is basically kidnapped by the organizers, and the whole purpose of this performance for this year is to find Tella, and whoever finds her is the winner. So there's a lot of magic involved in here and lots of like heartbreak and love as well, which is kind of typical of YA, but I'm very curious about this because everyone I know who's read this love the book, so we'll see how this goes. So the next book that I got is one that I'm extremely excited for. Everyone I know who's read it absolutely loved it, and it even won an award recently. I can't read it to be honest, but it won an award, and I know his second book came out relatively recently, sometime this year, and his third book is coming out next year. I don't know if that's the end of the series or there's more in the series, but I'm very intrigued by this whole premise of this book. And this book is called Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I recently read his Unwind book, which I really enjoyed. Definitely have to go find the rest of the books so I can pick those up, because that series is actually completed. It's been completed for years, I believe now, and I am really intrigued by this book. So this book is set in a world where there's no hunger, no disease, no war, no anything, not even death, because humankind has basically prevailed and conquered all of the things. And the only ones who can actually end life now is scythes. They have this job, and they're commanded to do so because basically to control the population. So these two teens, Citra and Rowan, are chosen to apprentice to a scythe. And it's a role that apparently neither of them wants, because now they have to master the art of taking a life, because they know that if they don't do so, they might lose their own. So I am very intrigued by this novel, to be honest. I'm like, I really want to pick this up as soon as possible, to be honest, because this book looks so good, but at the same time I don't really want to pick this up because I want to pick this up until the series are out. I hate waiting, guys. I don't know if you guys know, but I absolutely hate waiting for a series to come out. I like to pick up books when they're all done and I can just binge read. So yeah, but I want to pick up this book soon because this book sounds really good, and everyone has already read the second book as well, so I'm the only one who has been left out, unfortunately. So next book that I got is one that I don't know too much about, but I've read so many of her previous novels. I think there was a period of time in my life, probably in college or something like that, when I read or binge read a ton of her books at one time. And for some reason, after that, I stopped reading her books. Not because I didn't like them, but because life got a hold of me. And so her past few books, I don't think I've read. Actually, I haven't followed her in a long time, to be honest, but I know that this book came out about 2-3 years ago, and I have not picked it up. So if she's written other books after that, which probably she might have, because I know she's written a lot of books, it's possible, I haven't picked them up either. So anyways, I saw this book on Book Outlet and I was like, yes, I need to pick this up because I love this author, and I need to rekindle my love with her. So this book is called Saint Anything by Sarah Dessen. And honestly, her books are all kind of similar in the fact that they're all about like family and friendship and love and, you know, finding yourself, etc. And this book is pretty much the same, I believe, or at least it runs very similar to that kind of plot line. And there's a quote back here that basically just says about how it's an honest story about how we might suffer the misfortune of someone else's bad choices, how people who love us can become family when we desperately need it, and how starting over might miraculously mean taking a solid leap forward. So I'm very intrigued by this book. Again, her books have not failed me in the past, so I have really high hopes for this one. Then the next book that I got is one that I got mainly because, so when this book first came out, I didn't really have much of an interest to read it. I don't know why, to be honest. And her second book came out recently, and then I found out that her first book is actually becoming a movie, and I'm like, okay, well, if this book is like getting all this buzz right now, I should probably pick it up. And I was glad to see it on Book Outlet, so I was like, why not? And this book is called Dumpling by Julie Murphy. So this book is about a self-proclaimed fat girl, Willowdene Dixon, called Dumpling by her former beauty queen mom, and she is pretty much very comfortable for her body. It says right here, her thoughts on having an ultimate bikini body: put a bikini on your body. I'm like, ugh, great confidence, girl. And so then one day, somehow, I guess she ends up meeting this private school beau who is a hot former jock. And obviously she finds him very attractive, is attracted to him. What surprises her most is that she finds him attracted to her as well, and that's never happened to her before. At least I'm assuming that's why she's surprised that he likes her back. So now that this guy likes her, instead of having this new heights of self-assurance in her relationship, she starts to doubt herself, which I guess I understand why a lot of people really enjoy this book, because it makes her very relatable. I think we've all at one point in our lives, and even still now, have faced fears, and I guess not fears per se, but doubts about like how your body looks like, your body shape, etc. And now she's facing doubt for herself as well. And to basically take back her confidence, she ends up entering the Miss Teen Bluebonnet beauty pageant, and she decides to show the world she deserves to be up there as much as anyone else. So I am very intrigued by this book. As I said, this book clearly focuses about like self-confidence and like self-love, etc. So I'm very curious to see why everyone loves this book so much, if I will pick up book 2, and also because since the movie's coming out, at least I'll get to read this book in anticipation for the film. So those are all the books that I got for book outlets, which, as you can see already, clearly see there's been quite a number of books. So the next few books that I picked up were ones that I got because of the Barnes & Noble blowout sale or whatever it was called, and I went to the store this time because I realized that it was actually a better deal to buy in store for once than it is to buy online, because you get the 50% off, and because I'm also a member, you get the additional 10% off in store, and you get a tote when you buy 3 books. So I was like, this is a much better deal, because online you don't get the 10% membership off whatever. When you buy online, you can only get whatever is 50% off, which is slightly better deal, or like slightly less better deal than buying it in store. And there's a Barnes & Noble like really close to me, so I decided to stop by there and see if there's any books that I want to pick up. So the first book that I got is Ashe Princess by Laura Sebastian. I have been seeing this book all over social media for a very long time now, and I've been thinking about picking this up, and I haven't, mainly because I don't know, like I'm a bit hesitant about picking up books when they are the first in a series, unless the book that's been like extremely hyped up, or you know, the second book came out, or like a series about to finish, or whatever the reason. But if it just comes out, like it just came out, I'm a bit hesitant to pick it up because I'm not sure if I will like it, if it's, you know, worth purchasing, because I tend to purchase my book as opposed to getting it from the library or whatever. Yeah, I think I get most of my books purchased instead, especially in terms of physical copies. I definitely get my books more from the store than as opposed to a library. So anyway, I wasn't really sure if this was a book worth purchasing, but because it was 50% off, I was like, well, I guess it's a pretty good deal, so I figured why not. So this book is about a girl called Theodosia who was 6 years old when her country was invaded, and her mother, who was the Fire Queen, was murdered before her eyes. And now she has this title of Ashe Princess, basically as a sign of like a title of shame to wear in her new life as a prisoner. So for the last 10 years, she's essentially been a captive in her own palace, and she's endured a ton of abuse and ridicule from the court, like the court that basically overthrew her parents, or her mom especially. And then one day something unthinkable happens. I'm not sure what it is, to be honest, but the King Kaiser, which I don't know if I mentioned, he forces her to do something unthinkable, and then she realizes that surviving is no longer enough, and she decides to rise up and use her mind as a weapon. So I don't know, like this book sounds very intriguing. It does seem to be a lot about like female power, which I definitely believe in, so we'll see if this book is good or not. Honestly, I've heard mixed reviews about this book, so I don't know what to expect, to be honest. The next book that I got from Barnes & Noble is A Light Too Bright by Samuel Miller. Honestly, I don't really know too much about this book. This book sounded intriguing. But I honestly just got it because I really like the cover. I think the cover is actually super cute. So this book is about a boy called Arthur Lewis Pullman who lives in his grandfather's shadow, and apparently his grandfather died in Ohio a week after he disappeared from their home. And what happened during that week is not really, it's kind of a mystery, to be honest, because they're not sure how much of it was influenced by his Alzheimer's and how much was influenced by like whether or not he was actually coherent. So they don't know what happened during that week. And then one day he finds this journal that kind of details what happened, or kind of like, I don't know, there's some clues or some secrets kind of like leading to like what actually happened during that week. So he decides to go on this cross-country train ride because that journal has a train route and a destination. So he goes on this train ride to try to find out the secrets that his grandfather had all those years ago and what happened, what transpired during that week. So I'm kind of intrigued by it because honestly, like I said, the cover is very cute, and also because I like the idea of having like cross-country like road trips or train trips, whatever it is, like that kind of trip journey is very appealing to me. So I thought this book sounded really interesting. Then the next book that I picked up is The Bookshop of Yesterdays by Amy Mayerson. So this book is about a girl called Miranda Brooks who grew up in her eccentric uncle's bookstore, where he used to create a bunch of scavenger hunts for her. But then something happened between her uncle and her mother, and he essentially disappears from her life for the next 16 years or something like that. Yeah, 16 years. And she receives the news that he has passed away and he left his bookshop to her. At the same time she hears this unexpected news, she also learns that he has left her one final scavenger hunt. And so she goes back to this bookshop on this mission for the scavenger hunt to see and to find all these clues, and then she goes on this journey to find out the reason why her family got torn apart. So I'm very intrigued by this book. I love the fact that it's set in a bookshop as well. I think that's very, very charming. So yeah, we'll see how this one goes. But this is the last book that I got from Barnes & Noble. So the next few books that I got were from various sources. Some of them were from like publicity companies where I am their like ambassador. Some of them I got from giveaways. Some of them I got from like publicist agents. Then I got some from publishers and from authors, and then I also got a few books from Book of the Month. So these are the last few books that I'll be showing you guys today, and then I'll go on to part 2 of my book haul. So the first book that I got is from Booksparks. I would consider them as like a marketing publicity company, and they obviously market books. And so I was chosen as their young adult fall reading challenge ambassador, and as an ambassador they sent me like 4 books kind of scattered over like 2 months or so. I think September and October, and I just have to like showcase the books a few times, etc. And so the first book that I got for this is Two Dark Reins by Kendra Blake. I actually have not read any of her books before, but I have received the first one during Book Expo, and I really want to pick it up. I just haven't gotten a chance to yet. I also don't really know what this book is about because I haven't read the first book. I know what the first book is about, so I don't know how the series has progressed for this third book, to be honest. But I'm very intrigued by the whole series overall, and yeah. So next book that I got is from the publisher / published, and this book is called Pride by E.B. Zaboy. Honestly, all I know about this book is that it is a Pride and Prejudice retelling set in Brooklyn, I believe. Yeah, it's set in Brooklyn, yeah, Bushwick specifically, and it features 2 African American teenagers. So I am very intrigued by this book. We'll see how this goes. That's all I know about this book, and honestly I enjoyed Pride and Prejudice when I read it like many years ago, and I've enjoyed some of the retellings, and I know that this is the story that has been retold many times, but I think this is the first time that it's features like African Americans as well as being set in Brooklyn. So honestly, we'll see how this goes. I have really high hopes for this one though. The next book that I got is one that I won from the publisher, specifically from the novel, and this book is Etiquette and Espionage by Gail Carriger. I have read her previous books before, the Parasol Protectorate series. Absolutely love them, and I'm really interested in going back into this world. I'm not sure though in terms of how this book is set in terms of that world. I know it's set in the same world as the Parasol Protectorate series. I just don't know how it's set in relation to the original series. I know that she has this custard other series. I forget what that one's called, but that one is the daughter of the original main characters. And this one though, I'm not really sure, but it's part of the finishing school, and this is book number 1. Very excited about it. I love the original series, like I said already, and I am hoping that this book is as good as the previous series. But for those who don't know, this is a steampunk novel that is set in a Victorian-esque age, and there is vampires and werewolves involved, so it's kind of like a paranormal fantasy but with steampunk elements in it. So overall, I'm very intrigued by it. Cannot wait to dive back into the world of the Parasol Protectorate. The first book that I got from Book of the Month is The Mermaid and Mrs Hancock by Imogen Hermes Gowar. I'm definitely pronouncing that name wrong. I actually wanted to get a copy of this book during Book Expo, but unfortunately they ran out, so I was unable to grab a copy then. But I was glad to see that Book of the Month recommended it, which means that it should be pretty good, I think. But all I know about this book, to be honest, is that it's a historical fiction with a mermaid involved. Honestly, I picked this book mostly because of the mermaid factor. I like books with mermaids in it. I like books with dragons in them. I like books with mythical creatures in them. That's just my thing. So when I see a book with a mermaid, I'm like, yes, I need to pick it up. Also, these days I find myself enjoying historical fiction a little bit more, so I like the fact that these two elements are kind of combined together in this book. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. So next book that I got is one that I'm extremely excited for, mainly because I love Greek mythology and all that elements involved in that category. And this one is definitely, it's like a retelling or inspired by the Iliad, which I find very intriguing. And this book is called The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. So as I stated, it's about the Iliad, but as opposed to what we know as the Iliad, it's supposed to be about the experience of the captured woman living in the Greek camp during the final weeks of the Trojan War. So with that in mind, I'm very interested in this book. Like I said, I honestly love anything to do with Greek mythology, inspired novels, etc. Like that is something I find very intriguing. So because of that, I am very, very interested in this book. Then the next book that I got is one that I find really, really funny because it's something that I think happens a lot these days, just because, I don't know, the whole online dating and whatnot, it's something that can happen really often, and I know that I have done it many times as well. But this book is called Ghosted by Rosie Walsh. Obviously, I have not done it to the extent of this book because it's about these two people, Sarah and Eddie, and they somehow connect instantly and they fall in love, or they fall deeply in love. And I guess Eddie was supposed to book a flight to see her, and she, because they like know, or at least she thinks they know everything about each other, she doesn't doubt that he's going to come see her. And he was supposed to call when he arrives at the airport, but he doesn't call, and basically he just ghosts her, and all her friends are like, you should just forget about him, clearly, you know, like just move on. But she thinks that something must have happened because she just can't believe that this guy ghosted her. So she goes off and searches for answers, and apparently there is a reason why he disappeared. And it turns out that they never, even though they shared everything, they never shared the truth of each other. So I don't know, this book just sounds very relevant in today's society. Obviously, I've never ghosted someone to the extent of, you know, Eddie has done, but I've definitely ghosted guys in terms of never texting and calling back again. So this book just sounds super relevant to me specifically. So the next two books are books that I got from the publisher, and I'm very excited for both of them. The first book is The Spellbook of Katrina Van Tassel, A Story of Sleepy Hollow by Alyssa Palumbo. I've read one of her books before, really enjoy it. I have her second book somewhere in my room, and then this is her third book. So this book, as stated in the title, is about Sleepy Hollow. It's not really about Sleepy Hollow in terms of the original Sleepy Hollow legend, but it's supposed to be about a woman called Katrina Van Tassel, obviously. She moves to the spooky village of Sleepy Hollow, and there is a schoolmaster called Ichabod Crane, which I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that name wrong. They have this like secret love affair, and there is, at this point in time, there's the legendary headless horseman is already there for the Sleepy Hollow, and they're hoping that they never encounter him, especially after dark, because apparently that's where they do all the rendezvous, in the woods after dark. But then one day Ichibod suddenly disappears and he leaves her alone in a perilous position. So now they're trying to figure out the truth of his disappearance, investigating the forest, and using these dark magical means to find out what happened to him. I'm very intrigued by this book, to be honest. I enjoyed her previous book in the past. I actually really liked it. Haven't gotten a chance to pick up her second book, even though I do have the book somewhere in my room. So I have really high hopes for this one as well. And honestly, I don't really know too many books that discusses the legend of the Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman. So I'm very interested in the fact that this one does, and yeah, I think this would be a really good book. So the next and final book that I'll be sharing in this part 1 video is Starcrossed by Panda. Honestly, I find this cover to be absolutely gorgeous, if you can't tell already, and I am very intrigued by the premise of this book. It's a sci-fi novel with romance elements in it. So this book is about a princess called Princess Vila, and apparently in her planet, apparently they don't have any food apparently, and somehow they're stranded, and she makes this ultimate sacrifice to become an aegis for her people, which essentially means that she undergoes this genetic modification where it takes off 60 years of your life to form these like nutritional pills for her people. But then her best friend is still not getting better. In fact, none of the people are getting better, and now the king is also dying. So she's figuring out that nutritional pills is no longer what her people need, or is like not enough for them. So she needs to figure out what to give them to, you know, save her people. So yeah, that's basically what the book is about. And honestly, I picked up this book first drew my attention because of the cover. It looks so pretty. But yeah, that's basically all I know about this book though. So anyways, that's all I have to say for this video. This is just part 1 out of my 2 parts. I've already gone through 20 something books, and I still have yet another 20 something books for my second half of the book haul video, which is ridiculous. Honestly, I am exhausted right now. I was going to film both of them today, but that's not going to happen because I already spent like 3 hours filming just part 1. So I'll be filming part 2 a different day. But anyways, that's all to say for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these books. Some of these books are a little bit on the older side, as in they came out a few years ago, especially since books that have like sequels, and I'm picking up the first book now. So let me know if you have read any of these books. If you have, let me know what you have thought about it. If any of these books are on your TBR, etc. Do let me know all in the comments below. But as always, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe down below. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's it for today, guys. Thank you. Bye.